Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Five Star Zone. Rico Beard, Harold Shelton III from the BTN Network, Senior Research Manager, joining us on this podcast. Harold, oh man, we was just talking right before the show. It almost felt like the Big Ten put the edict out that Michigan State game had to mean something on Sunday, because I'm watching calls like, okay, that was a blocked shot. How did really like? I mean, Cooper and Trey Holloman got called for some shots that I'm like, that's what coaches teach you how to do. How is this a foul? For a second, I thought that, okay. Now, granted, look, Michigan State, they saw the zone and they freaked out and they panicked, and it looked more like Iowa was throwing a matchup zone at them, not necessarily a regular zone, because I was like, okay, wait, is this man's a zone? They were befuddled. They had nothing that they could do with it. And then all of a sudden, it was like a fever that broke. They broke through, and then all of a sudden they did what they were supposed to do, and they go out there and win the game. But Harold, for a second, I was thinking to myself, is this thing scripted? Is this supposed to be winner take all, or at least to give Michigan a shot at winning the Big Ten on Sunday?
Yeah, that was a weird game to watch. And I was wondering how Michigan State would react. For a couple of reasons. One, they had gone through that gauntlet of playing all of those ranked teams in a row. And then it's like, okay, now we got Iowa. We could take a breath a little bit. But clearly Iowa came to play, and it looked like Michigan State for 25, 30 minutes didn't look like they were ready to play. And then you started seeing some of the calls that were happening where Jeremy Fears and Cohen Carr go up strong and don't get anything. And then immediately after that, Peyton Sanford goes up for a couple of dunks. Both get blocked, and they call fouls. So you're kind of wondering, like, is this going to be Michigan State's night? Are they going to have to beat Michigan on Sunday to win it outright? Like you said, the zone, they didn't look like they knew what to do with it. They had Carr in the middle of it at times, but that's not a good spot for him because he's not a playmaker there. They put Fiddler there. He looked tentative at times, and then there were times there was nobody in the zone, and so they just kept passing the ball around the perimeter. Akins missed all of his shots in the first half, and you're kind of like, guys, like, what's going on here? But like you said, second half they figured it out, and lo and behold.
Okay. But Harold, here's the thing: you know how they beat the zone? Iowa stopped playing it.
Yeah, that was part of it too. And then I think Michigan State got a lot of stops, got a lot of runouts, and didn't allow them to get set.
Because I'm like, okay, why did Iowa quit? I'll give Indiana credit. It may be boring. It may be less manly, but they just said, we're not leaving this zone because you can't beat it.
Yep.
And when Michigan State goes on this run and Carr gets the dunk and they go up by one, it was like, okay, McCaffrey was just like, well, I guess we're done with that. We'll go back to playing man. I mean, here, I'm sure you know this, but for those watching, you know what the magical number from that game from Iowa was? 61. So many points they scored in the second half. Michigan State scored 61 points. To put it in perspective, that's more points you scored in the entire game in the victory over Maryland. In one half, you scored 61 points, and really, it was like around, I think it was the 12-minute mark when you finally made it back, when you finally took the 1-point lead. And then after that, Iowa, like every other team, seemed like they just kind of ran out of gas. They ran out of bodies, and it was run out, dunk, steal, dunk, layup. I mean, you had Trey Holloman, I'm quite sure, made a friend on the court. Probably a bad time to cut away FS1 to exactly what he said, because I think everybody saw when you slowed it down exactly what he told him to do. Yeah.
And from that moment, Michigan State outscored Iowa 45-31. So they were down 7 when that happened. They wound up winning by 7. It seemed like they needed a spark. Trey Holloman certainly provided that, and that seemed to kind of get everybody going. It's kind of funny. Like, I didn't know going into the season how he would emerge, especially with Fears kind of being the lead dog. But it looks like it's Fears and Holloman's team, and everybody seems to kind of fall in line. Those two seem to be the spark plugs for this whole thing.
Yeah, it's funny because Holloman, I mean, in the day and age of transfer portals, took a demotion and actually elevated his status Like, he was starting, but now coming off the bench it seems like his role has gotten enhanced. And I mean, kudos to Izzo for pulling this off and convincing him and not having him say, well, you know what, I'm out of here. I'm going to hit the portal. I think he sees the value in him coming off the bench, him being the spark plug, and whether the shots are going in or not. Look, he's feast or famine when it comes to the threes. Either he just airballs them or he's just on fire. But I look at this role on the team, and yeah, last night he was the spark that got things going, because all of a sudden he just, he got into it with the guard, and next thing you know, this team started making a couple shots, believing in themselves. Now Akins is hitting some threes. Now he's hitting another three, and now they go to coast, because you're right. Going up against Iowa was not a ranked team. It was the ultimate trap game. You got all of these ranked teams. You got Michigan at home senior night, and a ho-hum. You got Iowa where McCaffrey, maybe leaving. And was it his last game? I don't know. But Michigan State found a way. They pulled it together. They get the outright title. And, they hit some timely threes, especially in the second half, because I think that was the other reason why Iowa came out of the zone, because they actually hit some threes that forced them, like, all right, guys, they're making some shots. We got to play. But I look at this team once again. You're doing it. They say it's strength in numbers with Michigan State. I guess it's a little too late, because I don't know. It's always a proverbial question with a coach. Do you want to go into the tournament on this hot winning streak, or would you need another loss to kind of get your team refocused and get them galvanized and ready to go into the tournament?
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like even if they do beat Michigan on Sunday, that first round of the Big Ten tournament is not going to be easy. I mean, it's either probably going to be Illinois or Oregon as your 7-8, and we see how talented, good Illinois can be. Oregon was up 14 at the half at Michigan State not that long ago. And then your 9-10 could be Indiana, Ohio State. You already lost to Indiana, and you play, that would be in Indianapolis, so they could have the home crowd. Right. And Ohio State's a team that shoots a lot of threes, had success against you in the tournament before. So a loss could come even if you don't want it to. Just looking at that first round, like, those would be some tough matchups.
So that's they get the title outright. Now, do you think because it's Michigan, the grind is still there? Will there be any relax? Will they get like, we got this already. There's really no battle. Michigan's come to town, licking their wounds, because they got to get a point guard. I mean, let's just go back to that Michigan-Maryland game. Michigan showed you that Trey McKinney, the kid from Orchard Lake St. Mary's, he is going to be so coveted when he gets there, because they don't have a point guard. Wolf was like Oprah out there. Just you get a turnover and you get a turnover. I mean, I believe it was a possession where they turned it over badly, like 3 or 4 straight possessions, and just kept shooting themselves in the foot. They cut the game to 2, and you're thinking, okay, Michigan is the master of the close games. And then after that, it was Harold. It was funny to me because it looked as if both teams were so tired at the end of the game. It was like watching 2 old men playing one-on-one on the court, and you just want to blow the whistle and tell both of them, okay, you know what? We're going to flip a coin, and both of y'all get off this court before you hurt yourself. Neither team could hit a shot. Neither team could do anything. It was just really became a free throw shooting contest, and Maryland ends up walking away 71-65. I thought it could have been a statement victory for Michigan to show that, you know what, we're okay. Look, the timing of the matter is it doesn't look good, because ever since Dusty May signed that extension, they're 2-3. But 2 of their wins, you beat Nebraska, you didn't score 50 points. And it took a Barnett shot at the buzzer to beat Rutgers. Or you could have easily just been 0-5. It's not a good look with this Michigan team limping to the finish line. What did we see them going, starting Sunday, Big Ten tournament, NCAA tournament?
Yeah, so going back to the Michigan State part of it, I think if it was any other team other than Michigan, maybe there's some kind of lay down or we won't come ready to play because we already got the outright title wrapped up. We can get ready for Indy. But because it's Michigan, there's enough guys there who understand the importance of that game. So I would be surprised if they came out flat, especially considering I think they see a little blood in the water. They see Michigan struggling a little bit. So there's a chance for them to kind of put an exclamation point on this regular season. But if you're Michigan, I mean, you got to find a way to get four guys going at once. And they finally got a good game from Danny Wolf, who had struggled for a while. And I thought Donaldson was okay, not great. Golden continues to be, kind of the one consistent presence for them. But Mari Burnett didn't play well. Really, none of the role players did. And they need to have four guys going at once if they're going to turn the ball over like they did. I mean, Maryland didn't have a field goal in the last 6 minutes and won by 6 on the road. That just goes to show you how bad Michigan's offense can get where they're just continuously giving the ball up. Maryland did a good enough job making free throws at the end. The 3-point shooting continues to be a problem. They were 7 for 20 in that game. They've been under 30% the last few games from three. So it's been an issue for them. I mean, you'd have to go back to the Penn State game on January 27th, the last time they shot over 35% from three. So you got the 3-point shooting being an issue, the 16 turnovers against Maryland, giving up a ton of points off of those. They're hurting right now for sure. And I think they just need to get a win against a quality opponent to feel good about themselves again. But I don't think that's Sunday. You won't play again until Friday in the Big Ten tournament, but that could wind up being Wisconsin. And, that necessarily isn't a great matchup for you either. I know you beat them, but that was back in December.
If I saw it right here, not to interrupt, if they lose, they're the 4 seed. And they're good. If they win, they're the 2 seed.
Well, I think it'll depend because Maryland and Purdue and Wisconsin, they all could be tied at 14-6. And then I think if you go through everything, I think if all of them are 14-6, I believe Maryland would be the 2. Then I think Michigan would be the 4. I think Purdue's the 3. I have to go back through it again, but I think you would wind up getting Wisconsin as the 5, and then good luck in that matchup playing the most efficient offense in the Big Ten. So, yeah, Michigan's having some issues right now. Like you said, the point guard play has been a problem. You can't continuously turn the ball over. It pretty much just negates your entire advantage if you're giving up runouts and you can't make threes on the other end. Teams will happily get a quick bucket in exchange for you working so super hard to get a 2-point shot.
So now you come into the game Sunday. Michigan State's already went into Chrysler and won. Was it 75? Was it 75-62? I believe. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So let's put on the coaching cap. If you're Dusty May, how do you stop Michigan State's team from winning and scoring and just suffocating you and ruining their senior night? What do you need to do? Who do you need to step up?
Well, I think it's Trey Donaldson again. I thought they completely took him out of that first game between Fierce and Holloman. They completely took him out of the game. And if it's a situation where Danny Wolf has the ball a ton and he's turning it over and they're giving up runouts in that building against that team, like that could be a really, really long night. So you don't want that to turn into how it was at Mackey when you didn't even have a chance. So in order for them to stay in this game, they need to make some threes. They need Trey Donaldson to play well. In that first game, he had 3 points, 2 assists. He was 1 of 5 from the floor. That's just not going to do it. They need 4 guys to play well. And when I say play well, I mean like at least 10 to 15 points each. And it's pretty good shooting. The first game, Vlad, I thought played pretty well. He had 21 points and 5 rebounds, but they still got out-rebounded by 9. They still turned it over 15 times. Second half, it looked like they ran out of gas completely. I got outscored by 17, which has been a theme for Michigan State throughout this win streak and for the whole season matter. So you got to make enough threes to stay in contact. You got to keep that crowd out of it. And if it's turnovers for touchdowns, like Izzo likes to say, I think it could get ugly.
On the flip side, your Izzo, how do you keep this team focused? How do you keep this team dialed in? And what do you do to make sure that you get the season sweep of Michigan? Because, I mean, and also just a bonus question, why is it that every game they just seem to fall down in the first half? It's almost like you give the first half away and you're banking on the second half. Because I think one of these games, it could come back to bite them there. It was like Indiana. You're like, okay, well, they'll come back. And I thought that's what it was going to be for Iowa because I'm like, okay, there's still a 10-point lead Iowa had, with all like 13 minutes to go. But back to if you're Izzo, how do you maintain and make sure you get the season sweep of Michigan? What do you got to do and who do you need to get hot?
So I think for them, they just can't come out too amped up like they did against Maryland, where they want to try to end the game early. Every play is a highlight play. They just need to calm down, play their game, because I feel like their game is better than Michigan. Like if they come to play and they play well, if both teams played at their best, I think Michigan State's better. So have Jace Richardson continue to be the alpha, make sure the ball's in his hands, late game shot clock situation. I mean, we saw at the end of that Iowa game, and Akins misses the dunk, and he's yelling at Richardson. And I know some of the announcers were, having a good time with that, but you could see Izzo telling him, how many times have I told you, I want the ball in your hands. Don't give up the ball. So I think Jace is still kind of learning that, hey, even though I'm the freshman, I'm the guy. So as long as he's still aggressive, stays out of foul trouble, the offense can still run through him when you get into that, final 10 seconds of the shot clock. Jaden Akins needs to continue to shoot. And I think seeing him in the Iowa game start out 0 for 5, 0 for 6, but still be willing to take shots in the second half instead of just kind of going into a shell like he has in the past, I think it'd be very, very important for them because they need to have multiple three-point shooters if they're going to make a run at anything substantial. So the fact that he's been able to stay aggressive despite missing shots and eventually making some, I think has certainly helped. But I think Michigan's going to play some zone. So you're going to have to find ways to get in the middle, be aggressive, get to the foul line, and hit some open shots. They should be able to win the battle on the boards. And
how quickly do you think Michigan will go to the zone?
I don't think you'll see it immediately, but I certainly wouldn't be shocked if, maybe that first or second media timeout after that, they drop into it, and then you see how Michigan State reacts, and kind of going to your point, it seems like they start games really well, then they make that line change, and then they go on these droughts. Like we saw Michigan go on a 15-0 run. Iowa, I think it was 22-2 yesterday. We've seen Maryland fight back after being down 5 or 6 early. So, yeah, I mean, this is what he does. Like, he doesn't let that starting lineup kind of keep going. Like there seems to be no substitution patterns where certain guys are coming in at certain times, and it seems like that does disrupt the flow a little bit. And they get in these ruts where they're going to not score for 3 or 4 minutes, and they're going to have a lead and then go down 7 or 8, and then they'll probably trail at the half, and then the second half comes out, and then they do what they do. But I don't know if that's just trying to keep everybody happy minutes-wise, but that's been the pattern for like the last month, it seems like.
No, you're right. So, I mean, I guess just to put this succinctly, Michigan State wins this game of what happens?
Michigan State wins this game if they win the battle on the boards and they get, I'd say, 15, 16 fast break points. As long as it's not just a complete half-court slog, they should be fine. Their strength is getting into the paint, offensive rebounding, second chance, and forcing turnovers and scoring off of them. As long as they're still getting those, like they should win, a couple possessions, I would think at least.
And Michigan wins this game if what? Donaldson has the, 15, 16-point game or more?
Yeah, I would say so. And I still think you need Danny Wolf to come along with him. I think you're going to get 20 from Vlad, but the other guys have to help. And it's got to be Trey Donaldson leading the way for them. Namari Burnett hitting threes would certainly be helpful, but I think you got to have Trey Donaldson find a way to get them in the offense and not be disrupted like he was against Michigan State the first time, when pretty much Fears and Holloman put him in a closet.
All right, so let's talk some awards. Just picking your brain. Who's going to be the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year?
Yeah, I thought Braden Smith left the door open with that 4-game losing streak. And then after what he did against UCLA and Rutgers, I feel like he's closed that door. And I feel like he'll win Player of the Year. Kind of crazy before the season. I know people picked him as Player of the Year. And I was like, really? And I guess you couldn't really, there wasn't another guy you could say, well, it needs to be somebody else. It kind of was him by default. But he certainly lived up to the billing this year, so I would go with Brady.
Now, it's funny because I look at his teammate and Kaufman Wren, and I'm like, this is what a year that – I mean, can you give it to a guy with a team that's an okay team? Can you give it to a Bryce Williams? I mean, are you allowed to do that, or do you have to come from a winning team? Because it's like the winning team is not – Michigan State. So there's nobody really leading them. I don't know. I look at a lot like a guy like Darson Garcia and the work that he puts in. But yeah, if it was me, I like Braden, but Kaufman Wren really at the end of this season has really been the guy that's impressed me. If I had a vote, that's probably where I would go with that.
Oh, which is completely fair. And I think he'll be a first teamer for sure. I'd be shocked if he's not. They run everything through him and through the post. And, if teams are trying to double him, that allows Smith and Lawyer to get those threes. So a lot of the post stuff goes through him. He's averaging 20 in league play. So, I think it's between those two. I thought John Tonje had a chance last few games. He hasn't lived up to it. And, I thought Derek Queen had a big chance against Michigan State to kind of show he could be Player of the Year, and then he struggled in that. So I think Braden Smith kind of had the narrative throughout, and it seemed like it was his to lose. And I don't know if Kaufman Wren did enough to take it from him.
Right. I think it is one of those things that because he started off at the top, nobody really took the crown from him. So he's going to get it by default. Defensive Player of the Year.
I'd actually go Jaden Akins. I really would. I don't think there's a guy in this conference, like when you look at him from a counting stat standpoint, that's going to stand out. Like I can't give it to Braden Smith, even though he's up there in steals. I feel like a lot of those are gambles. Like Conan Niederhauser, I believe, leads the conference in blocks. But if you're 19th place or 18th place, like I can't say that you're the defensive player of the year. So I feel like Jaden Akins, you've seen him guard a variety of wings throughout the season, and those wings have struggled. Like we've seen him against Bryce Williams, and Bryce Williams didn't do much, and John Tonje didn't do much, and Bruce Thornton didn't do much. Like he's been the head of the snake of the best defense in the conference, a top 5 defense in the country, and he is just completely taking guys away. I mean, Peyton Sanford didn't do much last night. He was all in his shirt. So I would go Jaden Akins, and it's funny because I was talking to Rayfield Davis early in the season, and Jaden Akins said the only thing, like his goal for the year was to be Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. He said, if I can get that, everything else will fall into place. So that was his focus to start, and it looks like he might get rewarded with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I see it too. That one, I agree with you. All right, now here's the pivotal one. Who's Freshman of the Year?
I'm going to go Derek Queen. I think if Jace Richardson started in January, I think he could have won it. I don't know if they'll give him enough credit because I feel like he was so far behind everybody else. Like he's making a late run for it. I think he might even make an all-conference team at this point, which I didn't think I would say, 3 weeks ago. But I think Derek Queen has done enough. They're going to be a top 4 team, so I can't give it to the Rutgers guys. I feel like they've kind of come and go. We've seen big performances from them, but they haven't resulted in winning. And Derek Queen has been the best player on a top 4 team in the conference, a top 20 team in the country. So
I'm with you on Queen. I'm with you on Queen, except for after the 22 points against Iowa. I think due to recency bias and due to the fact that a lot of people will vote late, you're going to remember the stuff that just happened rather than the stuff that Queen has done all season long. That I do think if Jace Richardson goes out on Sunday and has a special game, and he goes out there and has a season high. Well, I think it's 29.
Mm-hmm.
He matches his season high, or he gets to 30, or he has like the play of the game. I think that may be enough because of recency bias. Now you're right. The marathon, it is their Queen. He should get it. But the fact that we've seen Jace do it against all of these ranked opponents, and it's been fairly recent, Harold, I'm just saying that's one I would watch out for. If he goes out there, and I'm thinking magical number for him, if he gets over 24 points, he's going to make it interesting that it's almost going to come down to like a presidential election where you're going to be counting precincts to see, okay, well, who voted here and who voted here? You're going to get Steve Kornacki at the map touching the screen saying, okay, well, they won the Nebraska region, but over here, he won the Iowa region, he won the Minnesota region. I'm saying just watch out because I do think that he could make a push, especially on a night where everybody's going to be watching, even though there's nothing really on the line but pride. If he goes out there and has that game, that could be his.
No, I think it's fair. I mean, ever since he's gotten in the starting lineup, I mean, he's 17 points, about 5 rebounds, still shooting a great percentage. I mean, he's the biggest reason why Michigan State was able to go 5-0 during that brutal stretch and to win last night. So you got the team success, you got a first place team, you got the freshman being the best player on the team. It certainly, and the recency bias, like you said, it certainly gives him an opportunity to win it.
All right, Harold, what kind of stats you got for me?
Well, I know we talked about that second half, and again, we saw it again. I mean, that's 5 straight wins when trailing at halftime, and they are plus 130 in the second half in conference play this year. And the second place team in the conference in terms of point differential is 72. So, I mean, they have been by far the best second half team. And then I was looking earlier this morning in terms of best second half teams in the Big Ten, going back the last 20 years. And it was funny. The number one team was the 2016 Michigan State team that was plus 164. The second place team was 2019 Michigan State, which was plus 155. And the third place team was this team, which is plus 130. So they have a track record of turning things up in the second half, playing defense when they need to. And I agree that, one of these times that luck might run out and you might catch a team that is able to figure out that second half. But Michigan State has been a second half team, and it's been pretty remarkable how the script is the same. They trail a half, they come out, they shut everybody's water off, they go on a run. And outside of the Maryland game, they've won most of them pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, especially the Iowa game. You couldn't have told me when Iowa was up 10 in the middle of the second half that they would end up losing by double digits, but it's just what. No, it would end up being by 7, almost by 4.
But they went up 17 at one point.
Say what?
But they went up by 17 at one point. Like, they went from down 14 to up 17 in the same half. Like,
you're right.
That's crazy.
Honestly, I think the reality kicked in and they were about to win the Big Ten outright, and they relaxed. I'm just going to call it what it is. Iowa made a bunch of points, including one basket that almost ticked off Las Vegas because the bank 3, it was 6.5 point spread. He hits it. It's now a 4-point game. They called it off. It's a 7-point game. It's like, this is why Las Vegas takes your money, folks, because they kind of know what's going on.
Yeah.
But all right, well, we'll see.
Yeah. I'm going to leave you with one more.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to leave you with one more. And this is pretty crazy. Think about it. Tom Izzo has won multiple Big Ten titles in 4 different decades.
Wow.
Because you got 98, 99 for the 90s. You got 2001, 2009. Then you got 2010, 2012, 2018, 2019, and you got 2020 and this year.
Wow. Okay, see, right there. That's why we keep bringing them back. That right there. Harold, are you headed to the Big Ten tournament?
Yeah, I'll be down
on the sideline, all suited up.
Oh yeah, that's the plan. I'll be down there Wednesday.
Okay, so that means I got to get you either Monday or Tuesday then to kind of break down the tournament. So
yeah, that works.
Because I know you're gonna be Mr. Busy Man. Hey, just when you're watching the games, just look for the Natalie clad gentleman, you know, with the suits on, you know, and the gator shoes and all of that. That's him. All right, brother. Thanks for this. We'll break down the Michigan State game and then preview the tournament.
All right, sounds good.
All right. For Harold Shelton, I'm Rico Beard. Thanks for watching the 5-Star Zone. Keep liking, subscribing, and telling your friends. We will be back next week to break down and preview the Big Ten tournament. Until then, have fun and enjoy the hoops.